Good morning, everyone. Welcome on in. I'm your host, Bull Muscle. So, got ourselves a nice little consultation here. We'll go through it. It's a pretty decent one. All right. Question is from a viewer. Hello, Bull Muscle. You talk a lot about riding your bicycle, and you talk a lot about what the return on investment looks like from riding a bicycle. How have things gone for you since you now own a car? Has that changed your return on investment calculations? And the answer is it has. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about this. By the way, if we go before we get into the actual maths of it, if you have a question or if you want to ask me anything, askbullmuscle@gmail.com and you'll get what you're looking for. I don't charge anything. The only thing I ask is if I give you a video, just go ahead and share, pass it on by word of mouth, right? I refuse to run ads on my channel, so the giant content algorithm doesn't push me, which I'm okay with. So let's talk a little bit about the return on investment of biking. First thing I want to get out of the way, and this is very important. Okay, I have not done this remotely efficiently. If I was not trying to cost maximize this, if I had, I would have probably picked a used electric bike or maybe even just gone with a conventional pedal bike. However, this to me is something I really enjoy. So I went and bought a new one, and I like supporting the industry because electric bicycles, the more of them, it's like electric cars. The more of them that get built, the more the resale market comes down, which means they become a more affordable option. So I'm very much about it. First thing we got to do is figure out what the total costs are. And thankfully, I have a budgeting spreadsheet that does literally that for me because I have an e-bike and also transit cost an row within my budget spreadsheet. Now, why do I include transit with electric biking? Well, it's because realistically, you use both of them in tandem. If you don't own a car, you're much more likely to use public transit when and where an e-bike or a bicycle doesn't fit. So it's best to keep them lumped together. And it's not like I spend a lot of money on transit anyway, because I fairly seldom ride it. Uh, that may change, especially because I move closer to the rail and the next four stops are opening supposedly in 2 months. I'll give you the update on that in 2 months, when and if it happens, but maybe it will. So total costs I've got for electric biking is $1,590.94 in 2025. And I did just get it tuned up. I didn't need to go to a shop to do that. But again, I like it like that. And I'm going to put a ton more miles on it. So I actually, well, let's see what 2024 was $3,749 and 44 cents. So we're going to go ahead and add that here. 3749.44 plus 15. What was it? Nine. Oop, 90. Ah, come on. Wait a minute. That's not what we meant to do. 1590.94. So total spent 5,340.38. So $5,340.38. All right. So the question is, what return did that effectively get me? Well, what we can say is, what would the cost of having conventionally owned a car or driven the amount of miles I've biked on the car be? So that's the real question. Well, I got my K van at the beginning of this year, and I've owned it for the vast majority of 2025. However, for the first 8 months that I did not live here, I did not own a car. So, gotta reckon, I guess I can use my K van as a proxy for that, which would be the opportunity cost. So, what was saved from not having the car the first 8 months? So, that would be gasoline, insurance, maintenance, all of that kind of stuff. In general, based on how this K van has gone, it's running me give or take about 100 to $150 a month to run. Now, I've put a little bit more into it because of parts and other odds and ends that I don't think are going to be the same cost over the long run, but I can't ignore that either. So we're going to go with 100 a month for car benefit or for the total cost of owning a car. So what that's going to mean is, let's see here. There we go. Write that down. So we got to calculate the alternative costs. So I would have probably had to buy a car. Let's just assume I used transit till I bought a car here. Let's go ahead and assume I would have imported and bought the same car that I did, which is a little bit unrealistic. I'd have probably bought something conventional here, but I would have probably bought something pretty cheap, right? So that's going to be roughly the same. So about $100 a month. So I saved $100 a month for the first 8 months. So we're going to say that's going to be 800 plus I would have probably bought something here a little bit more expensive than that K van because I had time to wait and be patient because I bought on my bike. I bought that K van for a total of 6,500 uh with everything handled, including shipping and registration and all that jazz. So realistically, I probably buy a beater like a Corolla off of Craigslist for $7,000 or $8,000, and then it's probably depreciating. Whereas this K van is more an appreciating asset. I don't think I think if I sell my K van here, I'll get more than I paid for it. So I think let's say $8,000 over the 6,500 that I did pay for the K van. I think that's a reasonable assumption. So that's going to be 1,500 plus so it'd been 800 a month. There we go. $800 plus $1,500 for the increased price of a car I would have had to buy new here, which is the normal thing most people do when they move out here is they buy a car, almost the first thing they do. Which, given how good Oahu's bus transit is, really shouldn't be the case, but it is. Uh, then let's go ahead and add in the increased costs. So I would have probably paid a little bit more upfront for it, which is it's reflected in the increased $1,500 cost. So 8 grand is a pretty low. Most cars here cost more than 8 grand. But then we're going to factor in depreciation because the cost of the um, the cost of that car when I eventually go and sell it, which eventually I would have depreciated. I guess I'd probably take about having driven it for probably an extra year. I'm going to get something intelligent like a Toyota Corolla. I'm not getting some big fancy, European car or something like that. But it still would probably be depreciation. Let's be conservative here. We'll say another 1,000 for that. I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay. So this would have effectively cost me, we're at this stage, we're at $3,300. But we need to calculate, well, how much have I saved, even though I still have the K van, by not driving it as much? And this is the real kicker. What we have to do is from the time I bought the K van, figure out how much cost per mile that the K van has cost to run, right? And then figure out how many miles I've ridden on my bike since then. Now, thankfully, I bought it really more or less at the beginning of the year. So we've got since the beginning of 2025, I have ridden my bicycle just about 1,500 miles. So 1,500 miles. Now we need to figure out how much I have driven in my K van. In that time, I've driven my K van about 3,000 miles. Most of these trips up to the North Shore or to the windward side, stuff that I, could do with a bus, but it would take me a lot longer. So, time value of my money, it's worth it. And again, that little K van's a lot of fun. So here's the question. What have I paid in fuel, insurance, and maintenance in that time? Well, my insurance costs roughly it's now down to 25. It was closer to 30, but since this year began, my insurance has cost me about $225. Fuel has cost me roughly another 210. So we're at, let's see, it's 208.18. It's 208.74. So that would have been, let's see, 400, or that'd be $432.92 plus all the maintenance expenses. Expenses have been a little bit larger. Registration's been a chunk of that. I'm not going to count the costs of importing, while that technically was an expense in January. That's sort of a one-time purchase price deal. So for accounting purposes, we're going to leave that out. But I will count registration because you do have to do that yearly here in Hawaii. So that's going to be, let's see here, 224.74 plus 208.18. Now, that seems like an awfully low fuel cost, and it is. The main reason for that is because uh, a lot of the time I'll pick up friends for rides, and they'll usually, like, I'll carpool if, people want to go to the beach and get drunk, and then because I don't drink anymore, they'll usually pay me back by, filling up my gas tank on the way home or even really just throwing me a 20 spot for it, which is nice. I don't expect to have that happen, but it is appreciated. Plus, let's see, 11 plus 1148.92, and then we're going to subtract the registration fee, or not registration, the import stuff, which was 657.59. So it's a total of 9,224.25 miles. Now, I have driven my K van roughly 4,000, not quite, 3,800 kilometers. So we're going to go 3,800 times 0.62, right? So it's 2,356 miles. So 924.25 divided by 2,356 is about 40 cents a mile. Now, this seems a little bit high, but remember, it's Oahu. You just don't drive as many miles here, which is fine. Um, and these costs, the per mile costs are going to keep sinking as I drive this car more, right? Because that, a lot of these maintenance parts items, right? Fuel filters, oil changes, stuff of that nature. I'm going to find cheaper ways to do it as time progresses. So, but 15 to 20 cents per mile, that's just fuel alone. It's because fuel is expensive out here. It's north of $4 a gallon. So, what we have is 39 cents a mile. We're going to multiply this by 1,500 miles, which is going to be roughly equal to, well, $588 in costs. So this is going to mean the costs of an alternative are, at first glance, 1,000, 2,500, 3,300, 3,800, and $88. Well, what you're going to say is, well, the car is cheaper. Why wouldn't you take this? You're forgetting a massive benefit of the bicycle, right? This is one we haven't even addressed. Since I've gotten on this island, I have rode my bike about a grand total of, let's see, how much is this? So it's 1,500 miles this year, and I rode it a little over 2,500 miles the previous year. So we're at about 4,000 miles. So here's the real question, though. What are the health benefits of doing that? Because that makes a huge difference, right? 4,000 miles of cycling. Well, at my height, I burn roughly. The benefit to driving is, as near as makes no difference, not, because I don't think you can quantify the stress of being stuck in traffic. It's not good, but like, really, what do you want to say about that? The benefit here, if we're going to go through this analysis, right? 4,000 miles of cycling, I burn, based on what my watch tells me, conservatively. Usually it's closer to 50 or 60, but conservatively 40 calories a mile. We'll go with 40 because again, it's an underestimate, and I'd rather give the car all the advantages it needs because the bike wins. What were you expecting? But this will equal 160,000 calories. So 160,000 calories burned. Well, 160,000 calories is equivalent to, we know 3,500 calories is about 1 pound of body fat. So 160,000 divided by 35, divided by 3,500, I should say, is approximately equivalent to 45.7 pounds of body fat, which tracks considering how much I eat. Now, you can say, well, you wouldn't have as much of an appetite if you didn't ride your bike everywhere. I don't know about that. I know myself really well, and I eat a lot of food, but 45.7 pounds of body fat. So the difference in costs here between 5,340 and 3,888 is roughly $1,500. Would you pay $1,500 to drop 46 pounds of body fat? The presence of Ozempic in the United States would suggest that the vast majority of people would, in fact, do that. I know I certainly would. Hell, if you want to argue that that 45 pounds of body fat is the reason I'm able to do modeling work, right? This little number right here, why I'm going to be doing a modeling show tomorrow, which I'm doing pro bono, but why I've done modeling work in the past and I've made, let's see, 250, 500, 750, 1,250, 1,500. Oh no, $2,000. So I've made $2,000 from that. If you want to argue this model, this is, if I'm not 250, 260 pounds, all of that being body fat, right? That's an additional $2,000 in my pocket from modeling. So to me, the answer is really obvious here. And again, this is the worst case scenario. I'm saying 40 calories per mile of cycling, that's an underestimate. I'm not including all the other cardiovascular benefits of cycling. I'm not including the better moods cycling puts me in. I'm not including the friends I've made from, working with Hawaii Bicycling League, which I wouldn't do if I wasn't a major advocate of cycling. I'm not counting any unforeseen breakdowns that would occur because I'd be using my car more, or maintenance items that have yet to exist or yet to happen. And then remember, I've bought and I sold my previous electric bike. If I had kept on that, these costs would be a lot lower. Not to mention, right, because my current bike is extremely new, I'm going to probably bike another few thousand miles on that before needing any major maintenance on it. It's going to be minor bits here and there, but this cost per mile is only going to go down. The fact that it's still over $1 per mile is because I have been super wasteful and inefficient by buying two e-bikes and selling one at a dramatic discount, about a 70% drop. Wait, 70, 14. Yeah, no, 60% drop, excuse me. At about a 60% drop from where I bought it. But I'm glad I did that. This new e-bike is a little bit closer to what I want, especially because I have a car now. For carrying stuff, I no longer needed the cargo capacity my old bike had, and this newer one is a lot smaller. Well, not a lot smaller, but small enough to fit in my car and small enough to fit easier on the rail, which will be useful as time goes on. The other thing too is I could sell my car tomorrow and start reaping the benefits way higher than this because, right, if the first 8 months saved me $800, the second 8 months saved me $588. If I sold my car and flipped it, made money off of it, then the rate at which I would be saving money per month because I don't have that car would increase again. Speaking of, apparently civilians are going to be allowed to have commissary access soon, which means I need to do an ROI calculation on whether or not Costco is worth it. I think in general the answer is still yes for bulk items like rice, those rotisserie chickens. Oh. Um, big bags of beans, a few other items that just really are they're very good value at Costco. Spices, they're like a giant canister of black pepper that lasts you a long time, or salt, flour. Well, actually, flour I think I get from Walmart because I can't do anything with a 50-pound bag of flour. Like even if I wanted to, I don't have enough containers. Actually, I guess I do now because I finally polishing off some of the GNC protein containers. Maybe I could do that. But the problem is if you have a giant sack of flour here and you don't have a hard container to put it in, the cockroaches are going to get it. It's Hawaii. That's just kind of how things are here. But yeah, the point here is that even when you do it as inefficiently and as luxuriously as I do, the return on investment of biking is tremendous. It really is. Mr. Money Mustache has once stated that a bicycle is as close as we have created to a money printing youth machine, and he's right. Uh, right. The fact that like these are decent sized shorts. These are not small shorts, but look down here. There is no space between these shorts and my legs. The reason is because this is from cycling. It's also from squats, but it's mostly from cycling. The definition. So uh, the size is from squats. The definition's from cycling. The point here is that if you were asking me this question because you were wondering about whether or not cycling is the most efficient way of reducing your costs, the answer is unquestionably yes. Even if you do own a car, biking when and where you can is going to make that car last way longer. It's going to mean your insurance goes down the drain. Like, for instance, right, why is my insurance so low here? I didn't even calculate this, but why is my insurance so low? Well, it's because I do a lot of riding my bike, which means the miles I drive goes down. I only get charged for 4,000 miles a year because that's about how much I drive. Like, I'm not even lying on my insurance about how many miles I drive. If anything, 4,000 is going to be too much. 4,000 miles is something along the lines of what is that? 70, 6,500. I think it's like somewhere between 6,500 and 7,000 kilometers. There's no way I hit that this year. We are more than 7 months in, and I've let my friends borrow that car and put a fair amount of mileage on it, and I'm still not even at 4,000 kilometers. Uh, and again, once the rail opens, like going out to Kapolei, like there's a farmer's market out there. I'm just going to take the rail to go out there and then ride my bike over to the farmer's market. I don't need to use my car anymore. Right now, actually, I guess I could still do that because the rail stop at the stadium's open. But I'm a lot closer to that stadium station than I was a few months ago at my old place. So the point here is that even if you do it as stupidly as I have done it, and I have done it stupidly, riding a bike is a no-brainer when it comes to your finances, especially if you value your health at all. I mean, it basically means if you ride your bike to work, you never have to go to the gym for cardio. You basically never have to do cardio at all outside of that. Now, I still do because it's, a good variation. It's fun. And you need to know how to run, just sometimes life requires you to run places. So having cardiovascular experience and mileage in that way makes sense. But under no circumstances is it strictly required. Like, riding a bike is more than enough cardio to get you around. And again, I think we're not even touching the mental health parts of this. Bombing down a hill or whizzing along on a quiet bike path, as the sun's going down over the Pacific Ocean. It, oh, it's just so nice. Or better still, it's probably my favorite. Every day when I leave work, I cross the H1. I go on one of the bridges on one of the streets that crosses the Hawaii Interstate Highway H1. And every day there is a major backup. And not being in that, yes, you know what? It does make me feel a little bit smug. It does make me feel a little bit like I'm breaking the system, a little bit like I'm winning. Uh, I don't wish people got stuck in traffic. If anything, I wish more people biked so there'd be less cars and therefore the traffic wouldn't exist. By the way, the only way to fix traffic jams is to get people out of cars. That's the only way to do it. Because yeah, even if you do build another lane there, bro, what's going to happen is it just moves the bottleneck down to wherever that lane ends. And you want to say, oh, you're going to build a lane there and then build a lane on every street connected to it. No, you're not. No, you're not. There inevitably becomes a geographic choke point. Always. Even in places like Houston, where there's basically infinite land, you end up with this problem. That's why the Katy Freeway still doesn't solve traffic. But I'm not going to get into my urbanism rants today. That is all I had for this video. I've got some more content coming up, a few other videos I need to do. Um, Shoot, what else was I going to do? Oh, the cost of commuting. That this video basically touched on that already. I'll probably make a separate consultation video for that. But anyway, if you have questions, want a consultation about anything, can be about money matters, can be about God, I've had people ask me about, economics and political events. I've had people ask me about obviously diet and exercise, but anything you want to pick my brain about, askbullmuscle@gmail.com, where I, Bull Muscle, the only nuclear engineer runway model who was able to retire at the age of 30. Keep an eye on that one. I think 2026 is going to be the year. Will answer your question. I'm just saying there aren't that many other nuclear engineer runway models who are able to retire anytime they want out there. So maybe I've learned something or two. Maybe I can help teach you something or two. That is it for me today. As always, make good decisions. Those good decisions form your actions. Those actions form your habits. Those habits form your values. Those values form an ethos to be the guide start through the rough waters of life. Much love, y'all. Mahalo for the views. Come in for the hug. So lay me out.